Leticia Castro, and you're watching South Air Network. Coming up on the show, the war with Iran enters its sixth day as U.S. and Israeli strikes intensify, and Tehran vows to hit back. We look at how the conflict is impacting Lebanon, other areas, and where strikes continue, as well as what's happening with Hezbollah now in the mix, warning it to not stand down. And Nepal heads to the polls in a historic election, the first since youth-led protests brought down the government. That was last year. Thank you so much for joining us. So let's begin with this. The U.S. and Israel continue to bombard Iran, with at least 1,045 people killed since Saturday, as Israeli forces also strike Lebanon, and new explosions are reported across Tehran. Iran's escalating retaliation has hit U.S. sites, travel hubs, and oil facilities across the entire Persian Gulf, with 6 American service members killed in a drone strike on a port in Kuwait, while Senate Republicans in the U.S. voted down an effort to halt the war. In a regional development, the Nakhchivan Regional Police Department in Azerbaijan has confirmed to South Air Network that 2 unidentified aerial objects fell inside the premises of this airport. The area has been cordoned off and people evacuated from the region. Lebanon is also facing one of its most dangerous escalations. So we're talking about different regions being affected now. Israeli strikes intensify across the south portion of Lebanon and, of course, the southern suburbs of Beirut. Thousands of civilians have been forced to flee their homes, while schools are opening their doors to shelter the displaced. Our report looks at how the crisis is unfolding currently on the ground in Lebanon. Let's go to Stephanie Haddad, our correspondent who has more.
Israel continues its bombardment of Lebanon, targeting the country's south and the southern suburbs of the capital. The attacks come after Hezbollah launched rockets and drones toward northern Israel, a move the group claims was in retaliation for the assassination of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei on Saturday. More than 50 people have been killed and hundreds injured.
As you can see behind me, tens of thousands of Lebanese had to evacuate their homes in the south and Beirut bombed areas, while the missiles are still hitting several areas in Beirut. Hezbollah did not announce any rescue or evacuation plan, while the people are still under attack. The Ministry of Education has urged all public schools to open their doors for the people looking for shelter.
نحن من الجنوب جينا من برعشير مشينا الساعة 3 من الضيعة بدينا مشينا قعدنا نحن على الطريق 25 ساعة لوصلنا لهون. أول شيء ميلنا عسول نمنا بصيدا على الرصيف مثل ما قاعدين هلا وما حدا قالنا شو بكم فوق بصيدا. امبارح بصيدا أكلنا غارة كبيرة. ولما ضربوا بصيدا أكلنا غارة من عود هربنا لهون. جينا قعدنا هون وبالحد هلا ما حدا بيقول لنا وينكم. الشعب وقف مع الحزب والحزب وقف مع الشعب. لو ما الحزب نحن ما فينا واقفين على جرينا. الحزب هو رافع راسنا. لما الحزب مش رح نرجع على بيوتنا هلا.
Time asked me if I can interview him. He wanted to tell me how he left his home in the middle of the night.
أنا بالبيت كنت أنا نايم هو انكسر فوق بابا وماما فوق طلعنا وبعدين طيعنا ماما وبعدين رحنا على الشنانة تبعية المطار الفوتبول ونمنا هونيك.
Sahira, an 18-year-old, left her home, school, and life in Khiam with her little brother.
أنا مواطنة من الخيام، اسمي ساهرة داوود. تهجرنا تقريبا من 3 سنين من الخيام وجينا على مدينة اسمها النبطية تحديدا طول ووقفت مدرسة. أمتين بدنا نخلص من هاي الحرب بقى.
The UNDP has begun distributing mattresses and essential supplies to displaced families sheltering in public schools and community centers. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens are stepping, organizing charity drives and cooking meals to support refugees through individual aid efforts.
ضبضبنا كم غرض ودورنا السيارة وفلينا وصارنا يومين على الترقان عجقات وما عجقات وصارنا مندور يومين 3 حتى لقينا اليوم.
In a significant move following the escalation, the Lebanese government announced a ban on Hezbollah's military activities, saying decisions on war and peace must remain under state authority. Hezbollah's deputy leader Naim Qassem announced the group is prepared to continue fighting despite the escalating conflict, describing the battle as a defining moment for the region. Qassem also addressed the government's decision to ban Hezbollah's activities, declaring that the issue of the resistance and its weapons is not a matter for debate, and Hezbollah will continue its existential defense until its objectives are achieved. Israeli ground forces have advanced into several Lebanese border villages, pushing approximately 6 kilometers inside Lebanese territory, and have warned residents in dozens of villages to evacuate immediately. As Hezbollah and Israel exchange fire, the wider Middle East is shaken by a direct confrontation between Iran and the United States. With missile and drone attacks spreading across the region, Lebanon finds itself on the front line of a rapidly expanding crisis. Stephanie Haddad, South Era Network.
Thank you, Stephanie. A complicated situation that keeps affecting more and more people. Now, on to a different subject, but talking about Iran as well. It has, in effect, closed the Strait of Hormuz to oil and gas exports, and it's having a big impact on the world economy. My colleague Sahil Mengani explains more.
Thank you so much, Leticia, because Iran is a tough power to mess with. And one of its biggest strengths, viewers, is its geography. That already provides Iran powerful leverage. With the Strait of Hormuz now blocked, this area, this narrow path is now blocked. The pressure thereby is now mounting there at Bab al-Mandeb, and your wallet is set to feel the shock almost instantly. And these are not just ordinary sea routes. They are critical economic choke points for the world. The Strait of Hormuz is only about 21 miles wide, yet 30%, that is 20 million barrels of oil supply pass through it every day. And why just oil? Even the LNG moves from these two routes, providing power to Europe for travel, for airplanes and everything. And if Iran decides to bomb these tankers, because these tankers move in great density, then the oil prices will go up. And it's not happening for the first time. Even the Bab al-Mandeb, the second route which connects Red Sea and all the way to Suez Canal, has been attacked previously in 2023. Ship tankers were attacked by Iran, and as a result of which they had to take a longer route all the way across Africa to reach their destination. That had sent prices skyrocketing. So it's not only important that we keep these points open, but it's also important to keep in mind the kind of capacity that Iran has, because it can just bomb these tankers and thereby choke one of the two of the most important arteries for global trade. Back to you, Leticia.
Thank you so much, Sahil. Of course, an important piece of water. Now, we have to consider what is happening, the current situation, and of course, we're going to analyze that further on. So let's go to the next story. Of course, we need to cover Nepal because it is voting today in a general election. Very important general election. It's first since unprecedented youth-led protests toppled over the government last September. The unrest triggered by a social media ban left 77 people dead and forced Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli to resign, leaving behind a complicated legacy of decades in power and a governance style that ultimately failed a younger, more connected generation. Undeterred, Oli is back on the ballot, making another bid for the Prime Minister's office. Nearly 19 million voters are choosing from more than 3,400 candidates across 65 parties. You heard that correctly, with jobs, corruption, and governance as the key issues. Now, the frontrunner is Balendra Shah, a 35-year-old rapper turned politician who has captured the hearts of many young voters. Now, the question is whether this unlikely political star can ride that wave all the way to the Prime Minister's office. Muna Khan reports.
He started as a rapper on the streets of Kathmandu. Now, Balendra Shah wants to lead Nepal. At just 35 years old, this former structural engineer and hip-hop artist is challenging the political establishment in ways Nepal has never seen before. Shah shocked the nation. Running as an independent candidate, he crushed the traditional parties to become Kathmandu's mayor. Voters chose Balen because he had no ties to the old guard, the politicians they blamed for decades of corruption. But the real turning point was last September. Thousands of young Nepalis flooded the streets in a Gen Z revolution. They demanded an end to corruption. After weeks of protests and over 70 lives lost, the government collapsed. Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli resigned, and Balen emerged as the voice of a new era, Nepal's youth revolution. Now, Balen is making his biggest gamble yet. He resigned as mayor to run for parliament, but he isn't playing safe. He is challenging KP Sharma Oli directly in Oli's own rural stronghold, 300 kilometers from the capital, Kathmandu. It is a battle between old Nepal and new Nepal, between 73-year-old Marxist politics and 35-year-old youth movement. He says he will keep making music even if he becomes prime minister. On March 5th, Nepal votes. The question is simple. Will the rapper become the leader, or will the old guard be too strong to break?
Of course, we're following that election, and we'll have an update for you right here later on. That's all for right now. I'm Leticia Castro, and we'll see you again at 16 GMT for our main South Era report. Thank you for joining us.